Everything in real estate starts with the deal. That means that if you have a really good deal, money will be attracted to it and you'll be able to find investors. Many people start out with a mediocre deal and then they can't get capital for it. But it's not because it's hard to start a real estate business, it's because their deals suck. Finding great deals requires a lot of hustle and a lot of work. It takes skill and risk and work to find really, really good deals. But you can make millions, for example, by entitling land to flip to someone else without ever having to even own real estate. It just requires a lot of work and a lot of time and dedication to it. So if you don't understand what a good deal is or how to find them, you will just never be successful in starting your own business in real estate. Once you have good deals, you can find the right people to partner up with and take care of the rest. But if you don't figure out what a good deal is and how to find them, you will not be successful in real estate. So when I first got to Nashville, I assessed the landscape. And one thing that really set me apart was I was from California. I, was living in between Los Angeles and San Francisco in a city. And I understood how cities grew and how the cool, hip neighborhoods were formed adjacent to city centers and, things like art pop-ups and cool coffee shops. And I understood how, what was cool for my generation or where people want to live, basically. So when I got to Nashville, the neighborhoods that were adjacent to downtown weren't really ready to be developed yet, or the local people here thought they weren't super nice, but I saw something that they didn't. And I really looked at the city from a different lens and started my first projects. And to me, it was so obvious that it was a great deal. But my very first project, one of my first projects was called Illume. And it was so obvious to me that this was a great deal. But so many people that were local to Nashville and had grown up there and weren't used to how fast the city was growing really overlooked this opportunity. So I basically thought that this location, which was adjacent to downtown Nashville, was going to be great for a condo project. And I did the initial underwriting. I basically partnered with an architect and a general contractor to say, okay, what can I build on this acre site? And how much is it going to cost? And I was working with a few brokers to see, to find projects. And just on the back of the napkin, which if you can't make a deal work on the back of a napkin, then forget it. If you have to do some serious financial engineering, but just on the back of the napkin, hey, I'm going to spend, $4 million, I think I bought the land on the land. I'm going to spend $20 million on the building. And I'm going to have to spend another $4 million on architects and engineers, for example. So that's just like a basic cost. And then looking at the overall market. So I looked at the rest of the market, which was in the Gulch neighborhood of Nashville, which is basically like a hip suburb. And I looked, okay, what are things selling for in this neighborhood? What are houses selling for per square foot? And, I wound up with anywhere between $450 to $500 at the time per foot. So that means if you have a condo building, you have a 2-bedroom condo and it's $1,000, you are going to be able to sell that for $450,000 to $500,000. Now, mind you, this is 10 years ago. That's pretty inexpensive these days, at least for Nashville, depending on where you're at. But, I looked at all of the comparable buildings and what things were selling for. Just if I was being conservative and I could sell for the current price that things were selling for, there's a big spread between what I could sell the building for and how much it was going to cost me. The project was poised to make, call it over $8 million just on a back and napkin basis. And so I knew this was a good deal. I wasn't spending a lot. It was in a neighborhood that was super up and coming. Nashville is booming. There's tons of people moving there. There's tons of different aspects of the economy that are driving that growth. So it wasn't just one thing, like one car manufacturing plant, like some cities are built on. It was academia. We have Belmont and Vanderbilt and Harry Medical College and all of these schools, which create a great labor force. We have the music industry. which is a huge aspect of Nashville and really is part of the city. We have hospitality and tourism. So many people come to Nashville and are continuing to come to Nashville. We have healthcare. It's the healthcare capital of the world, or of the US. And so all of these economy drivers really gave me a lot of confidence that my underwriting was conservative and that we would even see more by the time that the building delivered, which was 2 years later. So basically, I tied up this deal. I went online, Googled where do people get money for real estate, and read a bunch of different forums and things. And I was taking some commercial real estate investment courses through an organization called CCIM, and they had a directory on there that included other people that were CCIMs. And that was where I met my first investor. He was on the directory. I cold called him and emailed him. And because his profile said he was interested in opportunities, real estate opportunities to invest in, and basically got him to come to Nashville. I had to call him about 5 or 6, 7 times, but I got him to come to Nashville. And as soon as he saw this deal, he structured it in such a way that was very advantageous for himself and figured he didn't have anything to lose, but I had a really great deal here. And that's what enticed him to come to Nashville and take a chance on me, even though I didn't have a track record and I didn't have any money to invest. And so the moral of that story for me was that, I got my deal funded. I ended up making more than he did actually on the deal because it ended up being a total home run. And the way that the deal was structured, there was a waterfall or return to where I would get a certain amount over a hurdle that he got. So he made a really nice sum, and then I got everything after that, and it ended up being a home run. So it was very lucky. But the point is that if you have a good deal that makes a lot of money, you will find an investor for it. It takes work and hustle, but the problem is there's so many mediocre deals out there, or people get involved in projects that they don't know what they're doing, or they're not conservative enough on the underwriting. And so it ends up just, they end up failing and not really being able to kickstart their business. So the fundamental of a real estate business is the actual underlying project or deal. If you get very good at finding deals, especially in this market, you can write your own ticket. And these are some of the ways how. 1, find investors that are motivated to sell commercial property for other reasons than, wanting to run a marketed process. So they might be motivated by, some sort of time crunch that they have, or a family matter, or needing to get out quickly. But there's always sellers of commercial land that want to get out quickly or are motivated by something else besides money. And, using your network and calling on people and meeting with people and trying to work with those sellers to basically get their property under contract is one of the easiest ways to first start in real estate, especially if you have no money. It's called a double escrow, meaning you'd put the property under contract and find someone else to buy it and make the differential, like flipping contracts, basically. It's a very common way that people get started in real estate, but it's a way to do it without any money, and you can make a lift on it. So basically, finding commercial sellers that are motivated to sell for other reasons or inefficiencies in their sale. That means that's not happening by marketed deals by brokers. So another way is to find distressed property from one of these motivated sellers, or on an off-market basis, meaning, you're going door knocking on a piece of property, talking to the seller, doing the work to create a relationship with the seller, and then running a real marketing process between what you can buy that property for and what you could sell it for, with a really, with a strong broker process, good marketing materials, good photographs, that sort of thing. So when I first got started, I was basically door knocking to find my deals, and was able to just create a relationship with sellers and give them an amount that they were that was considered market, or they were happy with. But I was able to make more money, turning it into a project or marketing it correctly on the other end because they weren't really interested in going through a full marketing process. Another way to really help, get started in a real estate business is to identify an empty building that doesn't have a tenant and then go and find that tenant. So that could be retail, industrial, commercial, but basically tying up a property and then going to find a tenant. So meaning you're working with brokers, you're working with your personal relationships. If it's a building that works really well for, small businesses, you call around, try to get someone to rent it while you're under contract before you take the risk of closing on it. If possible, that's great. And then you create that much more value once it's leased out as opposed to just having an empty building, but you're buying it at the empty building price. So that's an easier way to get, an increased value in real estate quickly. Another opportunity I see for people creating real estate businesses is in looking at commercial property. A lot of times it's valued based on what the current rent is or what the current square footage is or how much land that you have, right? And a lot of times if I'm building something, I really try to think outside of the box what you can do with that property. So that means that obviously increasing the value of it, doing a renovation or increasing square footage on a property obviously creates more value. And a lot of times you can get that at a premium for doing all of the work. On the other side, you can also sell off or make properties more efficient if there are extra building or extra land that you don't need by compartmentalizing, a lot or, subdividing a lot or maybe renting out, part of a building that you don't need to create extra value, which decreases your cost basis. So I think thinking outside the box and really either adding value or selling off parts of the property should be looked at in a way to help with your real estate basis. So another way that I've found very good deals in real estate besides just off market and approaching sellers directly is by looking for brokers that are poorly marketing the property or for brokers that aren't in the commercial real estate space. So one way I found one of the best deals, which is my office located in an opportunity zone, which is in Nashville. I have an amazing office. I got it from a residential broker that had a commercial listing. So I always look for brokers that are residential but listing commercial property because a lot of times maybe they have a relationship with the seller, they're family, friends, they're comfortable, they're really great people, but they don't know a lot about commercial real estate. And so usually they're not marketing it to a broader commercial real estate investor audience. And I was able to get my office off market, I think because, it was being brokered not in a normal process. And so looking for residential agents that have commercial listings will usually have some inefficiency or, you can find, or just generally properties that are marketed poorly. Looking at those, there could be opportunities for finding good, inefficient deals there. So the key to building a good real estate business is finding the best deals. And that usually means off-market or poorly marketed deals, but you have to understand what a good deal is and how to find them and work really hard at finding them and not just going to brokers and being, lazy. So I hope you found this helpful. If you want to know more about what it takes to be a real estate developer, have a real estate development business, watch this next video.